Continuing on from World at War, we are now looking at Final Fronts, the expansion pack released for some strange reason as a PS2 exclusive. But that in itself doesn't inherently hurt the game, it's just a little weird. Maybe the fact that it was developed by Rebellion Software does, but we haven't seen these guys before now, so I have no point of context for that, so let's just take a look at what's going on here. As always, this is a relatively short game. I finished it in about 4 hours, and it seemed to take the same narrative idea as the original, keeping with the CG map cutscenes with stock footage, but instead of adding a character narration of future events, this time it's characters reciting war journals from the campaign we're playing in which honestly works better as a framing device.
We're getting closer to Japan. The closer we got, the more determined the Japanese were to stop us.
This time, instead of American and Soviet factions, we're looking at America and Britain as America works over Oceania again, and America and Britain work towards destroying Berlin on the European side. So, this is stock World War II shooter yet again, and while the narrative holds it all together rather well, Final Fronts really just comes off as a series of moments. In that case, instead of doing my usual thing of rattling off what the game did and didn't do right, we're going to be doing this review in slideshow form. Final Fronts has some decent vocal talent for much of the game, adequate enough to be entertaining and telling us what's going on, and in this one particular character's case, who I believe was the guy driving my tank in the one vehicle section of this game, was hysterical since he was speaking like a laid-back surfer dude for some reason.
We don't get to Bastogne and relieve our guys there. There's no saying how much more damage this German counteroffensive could do.
And then conversely, 90% of the British dialogue is done in indecipherable dialects, but this time we don't get a subtitle option to make sense of it. Moreover, it doesn't hurt the game and comes off as a hilarious form of terrible design.
No conversation anyway. That should put the wind up and for a while, eh?
Now, whenever you get a ragdoll physics engine in a subpar shooter, you are gonna see some hilarious animation failures that just liven up the whole game. I remember one in particular was the corpse spinning for about a minute before settling on the ground. I thought we could have hooked him up and started some sort of perpetual energy engine, but he stopped about 30 seconds after he started, killing the idea. Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I'm glad that this game had such a poor range of enemy character design, because since all of the Tojos are wearing their pajamas and the Nazis are wearing the de facto iron helmets, you can actually tell who you're shooting at a moment's notice, which some of the better iterations have had issues with. But for the love of God, the graphics on this thing flip from being covered in dirt to being as fuzzy as Call of Duty 4 DS. Is this really the best you could have done on the PS2? I'm seriously asking. Returning to an old Call of Duty tradition, we get this slight difficulty curve in Final Fronts that then skyrockets upwards in the final mission. The game is fine up until then since it's not too hard, you get a huge amount of health and regenerating health is quick, plus the enemy has like a 10% chance of shooting you at all times and everyone dies in 2 hits, but in this final mission, the assault on Shuri Castle, the quick checkpointing of every other mission gets thrown under the bus and leaves you with waves upon waves of enemies that aren't respawning. There's just a fuck ton of them, and the first checkpoint you get in this mission isn't until you invade the barricades of the Tojos, shoot about 20 of them to get up to the first cover, and then go through another 15 before making it to the wall, where you have to get through another 20, and a respawning machine gun raining down over all of it, before you get called to blast through the castle door with another 5 to shoot and the same machine gunner, and then you get your first checkpoint. The checkpoints in this mission keep up that intensity and checkpoint frequency for the whole thing, which is a literal invasion mission where you have to attrition your way through all these soldiers, which are backed up a couple of times by nearly impenetrable machine gunners. The mission ends with you eliminating 3 AA gun positions, which is fairly easy compared to the rest of it, and then having a horde battle with constant waves of bonsai warriors, and Rebellion kinda missed the point of these enemies in the original game, and here they're telling us they know they fucked up, but they're still doing it anyway, because Treyarch's bonsai warriors would have made this battle impossible. But still, come on Rebellion, you could have done a little better on that. To finish off this review, Final Fronts is the truest example of an expansion pack that I've ever seen, because what it does with its narrative is that it fleshes out the story of the original game while leaving the ending of the original intact. If World at War was a story-driven game, then it would have added to that greatly, but here it essentially acts as fluff for the gamer who enjoyed World at War and wanted it to last a little bit longer. The biggest reason for this is that the game ends in medias res at Shuri Castle and before the Battle of Berlin, which the main game took care of previously. World at War Final Fronts is an expansion pack in the truest sense of the word. It attempts to take the original game's ideas and structures, tone and such, and adds a pack of missions onto that in order to satiate fan demand for more of the original. Of course, it's not comparable to the original since it's graphically and technologically inferior and doesn't seek to have an identity of its own, but the occasional funny moment and interesting fuck-up or thing occurring does mean that this game comes away adequate and not tiresome like N-Space's library excluding Mobilized. And just to tack this on, I'm pretty sure that Rebellion made this game by the British, for the British, simply because of how they went about doing British voice acting for it, which is so garbled in dialect that really only the British are going to be able to understand that. And I can appreciate you made a game for the locals, but then the localization didn't cover it all. Anyway, decent game for those who like World at War. I'd actually recommend playing it, and next time we'll be getting back to the reason I said the remark above for N-Space, because they are dealing with the last expansion pack to World at War, with the same name as the original, with DS behind it. So hopefully we'll be leaning more towards Mobilized than Defiance, but don't hold your breath, I'm certainly not. So, victory for gamers and all that. I'm just gonna turn off my old-timey filter now and god dang it. Well, that's all, folks.